there's some silence there at the end. I don't know if you see that.
Yeah, I paused it.
Okay. No, yeah. So just got questions.
Answers.
What is the most fun song you think you've ever written?
I've never been asked that question. The most fun song.
Or the song you had the most fun writing?
Well, probably one of the ones that's behind me was the #1 in England called Day and Night. That was fun because I was writing with people who were in England. I was in Nashville, and they wanted something fun and simple and up-tempo. And looking back, the process was fun because something I would urge you to do as well is I was always listening to, or am always listening to different types of music. So at this time, I was listening to stuff like Moroccan music, odd melodies, French music and stuff. So in this case, they had the artist in the studio in London, and we're stuck. And so it needs to be up tempo, it needs to be fun. Again, we're back to the moving the butt, not the brain, totally. So they got to me, and we're doing this. It wasn't even Skype, it was email back then. And they said, see what you can come up with, send us an MP3. So, and literally like that day, see what you can do today, because we're sitting here in the studio, like 6 hours later, time-wise. So I was stuck. I thought, how do I make fun? I'm by myself at home. How do I get something right now that's really interesting and fun? I worked a lot that day. Nothing really happened. I did something I would always urge you guys to do if you don't already. I was stuck, so I just got out of the house. I got in the car, went to the grocery store. In the car, I started thinking of a melody that was, I realized later, was from what I'd been listening to. It was almost Moroccan, like really kind of odd, almost East Indian melody, really unusual. I thought I heard it somewhere. So I literally go in the grocery store, and it was like da 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 da, like an odd melody for pop music. I thought I must have heard this somewhere because it's kind of formed in my head. I don't know if you've had that experience, but trust it if it happens. So I get in the grocery, and I called my home phone because this is a few years ago. So I called and left my melody on my own machine, still thinking I stole it. I thought, I've heard this, I've stolen it someplace. By the time I drove home, I thought, I don't think I stole this. I think it's pretty real. I put down a drum loop, sang that melody over it, MP3'd it to the people in London. They kept going with the song all night. They recorded it that evening, basically finished it in about a day, and it came out a few months later and entered the charts at #1 in England. It was a huge hit. So that was so fun because I thought, #1, I don't have to write the whole thing. #2, the artist was there in the studio ready to do it, which is really rare. So the fun part was how painless it was. And it was just, I trusted something that I'd been hearing that was forming in my head and kind of let it go, literally sent it in an MP3 and see what you make of this. And it was really fun. It's a fun song. It's a fun record to do.
What song?
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, what song was it?
It's called Day and Night by Billy Piper. So yeah, look it up. There's a video of her, that's pretty good. Very Britney Spears-like. The other fun ones I've had, without going into long stories, but have usually involved kind of just, how do you put it? Like letting it rip with somebody. Getting with a co-writer that you're not afraid to act like a kid with and just be silly and not care how good or bad it is. And out of some of those kind of sessions have come songs that did really well for me, like Tina Turner and things of the time that were pretty big. And it was a lesson for me to not overthink it, I guess, but trust that, if I'm having fun, especially writing with somebody else, let's just, not be afraid to be an idiot, throw out any idea. like you guys did on the song like Wonky that you just played, I imagine nobody was probably going, am I being too silly? Am I being too, and you just probably had fun.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of songwriting's really good, really, really good, because you don't have an editor sitting there with you going, I wouldn't do this. Are you sure? That's when you get into songwriting trouble, when the editor comes in the room. And I mean, if I could say one more thing about it, you have fun when you play like a kid. And don't lose that. You guys are all young, but don't lose that playing like a kid thing, because every writer I know is trying to get there, me included. If I get in the room with somebody, we're trying to be 6 years old and go, let's just have fun here till we make something here, and then we go, look at that, That's where you're trying to go, definitely.
Sweet.
Do you have any other tips for writing in a team?
As a team?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Well, let's talk about the things that can go right and wrong. I mentored different songwriters, including there's a place in Spain where I was a mentor for a week at a retreat, and it was all teams of 3. And my job was to go from one to the other, 3 different teams every day, and go in and see how they're doing. And usually when they weren't doing well was because somebody went in, one of the 3 writers of the team would go in absolutely pushing their idea right from the beginning. Go, I've got it, you got to do my vision kind of thing. So human nature, if there's 3 people in the room, somebody's just going to push back and go, go write that thing yourself. I thought we were here to write together. So those go horribly wrong, usually. Like that, I went in the room to mentor that threesome, and they were in this beautiful setting looking at a lake in this retreat in Spain where they should have been having fun. And they were all in 3 corners of the room like this, So I came in and looked around, and it was like, wow, this is co-writing at its absolute worst, And I said, what happened, guys? And nobody would talk about it. And so this is bad team writing, right? It boiled down to, I figured out, they stopped in the 3rd line of the 1st verse, because one writer said, I want that line in there. And they all went, I don't get it. Can we just let it go and keep going? And went, no, it's got to be my thing in there. So number 1, if you write as a team, it's about listening, big time. Listen to each other, and don't drive your idea all the time. The beauty of co-writing is you hope you get with good people, and they're going to have ideas, and the sum of the parts will be greater. It'll be excellent. So yeah, writing as a team. The other big one, guys, the big simple idea is, if you're going to write as a team, find people that do what you don't do. There's nothing more boring to get in a room with 3 people that do the same thing, because you could do that yourself. So you're looking, when I'm writing in teams, I'm looking to see if somebody does something that I don't know how to do. That could be rapping, Even though I look like I'd be an amazing rapper, I'm not that good. So I might find somebody else, find somebody that does the stuff that you don't do, and throw them in the mix with you and see what you get, because that's when you get something magic. But, co-writing is listening. It's big time listening, not going in guns blazing, for sure. How about writing on your own? Does anybody write on their own? Yeah? How does that process start for you?
For me, at least, I always start with the music, then I try to craft the lyrics as the creature that lived within the environment, and besides that, I write a lot of progressive music, so that's a lot more rhythmic and time-based.
Mm-hmm. Does it work well for you?
Which thing?
Writing the way that you write, starting with melody, basically.
Yeah, I think that's just really my take on the music. I think that there are a lot of people that do really great starting with the lyrics and that, but for me, I just really like to build the soundscape and then again create whatever I think would live in that soundscape.
I think that's great. For one, there's absolutely no one way to do this. No, anybody tells you there is, they're crazy. I write with a lot of people, and they, You might look at somebody in the room and go, what are you doing? And they go, it's what I always do. I start like this, and you go, wow, okay. And they're great. From being trained to being untrained, I have a writer that I've written with quite a bit, and she is totally untrained. She'll go to a piano and play to the point where she's got to get her phone and take a photo of what she's playing because she doesn't know how to do it again. But she totally trusts the instinct. So that's a different way. My point is, whatever way is working for you, that's your way of writing. You might try everything else, but yeah, whatever works, works. One thing I might suggest that we haven't talked about is playing with an instrument that you don't know how to play. In other words, pick up an instrument you absolutely suck at and be willing to play like a kid. And I can give you from personal experience tons of those where you get in a room and you go, I'm doing what I always do. It's kind of boring because I always do it. Let's go over there and pick up a mandolin, for instance. And for me, I don't know how to play a mandolin, but I'm willing to suck in a room and just play till something comes out that might be interesting. So again, I'm pushing back to the idea of don't be afraid to be embarrassed, but even if you're writing by yourself, get away from your tricks if you're getting bored and pick up something that you have no idea how to play. A friend of mine wrote a song with Keith Urban here not that long ago, and he's a phenomenal guitar player. And they were in the room writing, and he did exactly what I'm talking about. He said, you know what? I'm just doing what I always do. I'm really bored. And him being him, he could afford to go buy this other instrument we're talking about. So they literally went down to a music store downtown Nashville, and he bought some string instrument that he had no idea how to play. Took it back to the writing session and just doodled around with it forever until he went, well, that's pretty cool sounding, you know? Let's record that. And started building the song around something that was really different for him, really interesting. For me, keyboard, I've written a lot of songs on keyboards, and I'm terrible. Guitar is way more my thing. But I'm always willing to go play keyboards because I'll find stuff that is interesting to me because it's not my normal thing. And that's what I'm looking for as a writer. How do I get excited about something different?
You mentioned prosody with lyrics and melody, and something I've gotten interested in this class is experimenting with prosody and music recording techniques and production, because so many of the students are more interested, have more experience in recording. Have you ever thought about how the recording techniques, you know, the filter setting on the microphone, or how production might support the meaning and emotion of a lyric?
Oh, sure. Yeah, definitely. I've had, I'm not doing this so much now because I'm writing and coaching and all this stuff, but I've had home studios and would do exactly, I think what you're alluding to anyway, is I just get a new patch for a synth or something, or a new loop, and let it play, and think about the prosody involved. What's it suggest? What does it feel? Is it going to take me here? Is it going to take me up? Going to take me down? Yeah, I mean, soundscapes are really valuable, and they can drive a session as easy as a lyricist coming in going, I got this big title and a big idea. Yeah, soundscapes are great.
So if you've written a song, do you think about how it should best be recorded to bring out that lyric and melody?
Yeah, that's a great question, and yes, definitely. Yep. You think about what's the best way to illustrate this thing or bring it to life, or that. I think that's an experience one. You get more experience and you go, you know what, this kind of setting for my song is really what I had in mind. And sometimes you don't know. If you work with session players, Nashville is really amazing for session players, to the point where if I didn't do a song myself in my own studio, I'm going to go in a studio and you get kind of the A team of players here, and you just play them something on acoustic guitar and you let them go. Just go where you guys want. And trust that if somebody's that good in that experience, they usually are going to find a vision. And then you decide whether it, coincides with yours, or in the best case scenario, maybe even better. I've had songs brought alive that I thought, wow, I didn't hear that, and now I love this, you know. That's where collaboration is important too. Same thing with just the basics of the song. You co-write with somebody and you go, wow, they took it somewhere I never would have gone. And isn't that cool? You know?
Thanks.
I would urge one thing. Let me suggest this about gear. And I might be getting in trouble or going out on a limb, but if you, because this happened to me, let me preface it. Happened to me and some other writers I know. Got so involved with gear, buying gear, enamored of the latest sound, the patch, the piece of the, whatever was out there I needed to have. If you find it affects your writing, you have a problem. It did for me a little bit to where I kind of backed off. I thought I'm spending more time creating tracks. And sometimes the song is not that good. And there is no, pardon my language, but you can't polish a turd. I mean, that's the term that you hear a lot here, is no amount of great recording is going to make a bad song great. So it did start me down the road of going, okay, am I paying too much attention to gear and too little on the song? There's a balance there for sure. You know, I came back to it, but I thought, okay, it's got to be about the song first. And then learning, what I did love about learning gear and still do is it can be an inspiration for a song. You know, you guys have probably found that too. A new patch, a new sound, a new piece of gear can lead you down the road to something you wouldn't have done on a piano or an acoustic guitar. But I guess my point is beware a little bit. If the gear is running the show and the song is in the back seat, the song may not get anywhere.
All right, well, thank you so much. It was a really wonderful session. Thank you. I heard lots of wonderful things, and the fact you're working so well together is excellent. So well done. Carry on. All right. Thanks a lot, Mark. Great.
All right. Take care, guys.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Aaron, that may be my bad.